Most men will go their entire lives not knowing what is actually holding them back. Not bad luck, not a broken system, not the people around them. Words, specifically 7 phrases. Phrases so common, so culturally accepted, so deeply embedded in everyday conversation that nobody stops to examine what they actually mean, what they reveal, what they cost. Because here is the uncomfortable truth. Every time you open your mouth, you are either building your mind or dismantling it. Language is not neutral. The sentences you repeat become the architecture of your psychology. They become the ceiling above which you cannot rise. And most men have built that ceiling so low they cannot even stand up straight inside their own lives. This is not a video about motivation. Motivation is cheap. You can get motivated from a song and forget it by Tuesday. This is about something deeper, a complete rewiring of how you think, speak, and ultimately how you move through the world. If that is the kind of work you are willing to do, subscribe right now and stay close. Everything I put out on this channel is built for the person who is serious, not the person who wants to feel good for 10 minutes, but the person who wants to actually change. Now, let's begin. 1. It's not my fault. The second those words leave your mouth, something invisible happens. You have just transferred ownership of your life to whoever or whatever you are blaming. The economy, your parents, your boss, your circumstances. It does not matter who or what is on the receiving end of that sentence. The effect is always the same. You have made yourself a passenger in your own story. And here is the insidious part. It feels righteous. It feels like justice. Because sometimes you are genuinely right. Sometimes the economy is bad. Sometimes your boss is unfair. Sometimes the circumstances are against you. And the foolish man uses that partial truth as a full excuse to stop moving. Epictetus understood this better than almost anyone who has ever lived, which is remarkable, given that he was a slave. Not metaphorically, literally owned. He had no rights, no property, no freedom in any legal sense. His master once decided to break his leg simply to demonstrate power. Epictetus, so the story goes, looked at him calmly and said, "You are going to break it." His master broke it. Epictetus said, "Did I not tell you that you would break it?" The man owned nothing. And yet he was one of the most psychologically sovereign human beings in recorded history. How? Because he had drawn a line. A clear, unbreakable line between what belonged to the world and what belonged to him. His opinions, his responses, his inner life. Those things no one could touch. The foolish man tries to control everything outside himself and neglects everything inside. The wise man does the opposite. He releases his grip on the uncontrollable and develops an iron grip on the one thing that is always his response. 2 ship captains, same storm. The first is at the bow, screaming at the waves, cursing the sky, demanding the weather apologize. He abandons the wheel to shake his fist at the wind. The ship drifts. The second captain does not say a word. He does not waste a single breath arguing with weather. He grips the wheel, adjusts the sails, and steers. The storm does not know either of their names. But only one of them gets the crew home. Every time you say, "It's not my fault," you are the first captain. You are choosing the bow over the wheel, and while your hands are busy pointing outward, they are not free to build anything. Blame is not just emotionally unsatisfying, it is structurally self-defeating. To blame is to remain a child, someone for whom the world is always doing things to them rather than someone who moves deliberately through the world. The Stoic reframe is not about pretending you are never wronged. It is not toxic positivity. It is this: even if the event was not your fault, the response is always your responsibility. Ownership of the response is ownership of the outcome, and ownership of the outcome is what we call power. Drop that word in the comments right now. Just type owner if this is a shift you are ready to make. Not for me, for you. As a declaration. 2. He made me lose my temper. This is perhaps the most widespread lie men tell themselves about their own emotional lives. And it is a lie with real consequences, in relationships, in careers, in the quiet erosion of self-respect that happens every time a man surrenders his composure to a provocation. Let me be very precise here. No one makes you angry. What happens is this. An event occurs, you apply an interpretation to that event, and the interpretation produces an emotional response. The event itself is neutral. Your judgment of it is not, and the judgment is yours. Seneca called anger a temporary madness, not passion, not proof of caring. Madness, a collapse of reason in the face of stimulus. A man in the grip of anger is, in that moment, less rational than a sleeping man. And yet we have built an entire cultural mythology around anger as strength. The man who explodes is seen as authentic, passionate, real. Meanwhile, the man who stays calm under fire is called cold, detached, unfeeling. This is exactly backwards. Consider this scenario. You are walking through a market and someone bumps into you hard. Shoulder to shoulder, no apology, they just keep moving. You spin around, furious, ready to escalate, because what kind of person just walks through people without basic decency? Then you look down and you see the white cane. You see the dark glasses. The anger does not diminish slowly. It vanishes instantly, replaced by something closer to embarrassment at yourself. Now ask the honest question, what changed? The physical event was identical. The bump was the same force, the same absence of verbal apology. Nothing about the event changed. What changed was your interpretation of intent, and that interpretation was always yours to make, which means the anger was never about the bump. The anger was your own creation, based on your own assumption, filtered through your own ego. You made yourself angry and then handed the bill to a stranger. The Stoic understands that he is a fortress. An insult thrown at a fortress does not damage the fortress. It falls at the base. If someone's words can reach you, destabilize you, redirect your day, that is not their power. That is a gap in your walls. And the honest work is not to eliminate provocation from the world. The honest work is to build the fortress. Here is the engagement question I want you to actually sit with and respond to in the comments. When was the last time you let someone live rent-free in your head for hours or days after an argument? What did that actually cost you? I want to hear real answers. Not because I am asking for entertainment, but because naming it makes it real, and making it real is how we start to end it. 3. I'll be happy when... This sentence is the architecture of a wasted life. Not because ambition is wrong, ambition is fine, ambition is good. The problem is not the wanting, it is the implicit contract buried inside this phrase. The contract that says, I am not available to my own life until a specific future condition is met. The contract that transforms every present moment into a waiting room. The man who tells himself, I'll be happy when I get the promotion, is not just expressing desire. He is issuing a decree. I suspend all present satisfaction until further notice. And the cruelest part of this deal is that the future condition, when it finally arrives, does not pay out. The promotion comes. He is happy for a week. Then the goalpost moves. Now he needs the next promotion. The bigger house, the more impressive title, the retirement number. The horizon retreats at exactly the speed he approaches it. This is not ambition. This is anxiety with a business strategy. Marcus Aurelius, Emperor of Rome, ruler of the known world, a man who had accumulated more wealth, more power, more access to beauty and pleasure than any person alive in his time, kept a private journal, a journal he never intended anyone to read. And in that journal he wrote to himself, confine yourself to the present, return to now, do the work in front of you, do not drift into the future. Why would the most powerful man on earth have to remind himself of this constantly? Because the human mind's default setting is dissatisfaction. It is always scanning for what is missing, always comparing what is to what could be. Left unchecked, it will consume the whole of a life in the act of waiting for the life to begin. There is a story of a businessman who sees a fisherman sitting by his boat at noon, laughing with his family, clearly at ease. The businessman is immediately frustrated by the waste of it. He sits down and lays out the whole blueprint. Fish more, save more, buy more boats, scale up, build a canning company, eventually go public, retire wealthy. The fisherman listens to every word of this elaborate map. Then he asks one question, and then what? The businessman says, then you could relax by the ocean, sleep late, spend time with your family. The fisherman looks at him for a long moment and says, "Sir, what exactly do you think I'm doing right now?" The businessman was running on a treadmill toward a destination the fisherman was already standing in, and the businessman could not see it, because his entire psychological framework was built around future states as the only valid location for satisfaction. Stoicism does not ask you to abandon ambition. It asks you to separate the action from the desperate attachment to the outcome. Act with full intensity, build with full commitment, want things, pursue things, work for things, but do it from a place of completeness rather than lack. Because the man who cannot find any stillness, any meaning, any quiet satisfaction in who he is today, will not find it in the next tax bracket. He will simply be a richer version of the same empty man. Stop waiting to live. The life you are waiting for is already happening. The only question is whether you are in it. 4. Why is this happening to me? This question assumes the universe operates as a personalized punishment system, that your difficulty is evidence of cosmic injustice, that hardship is something that happens to you specifically, for reasons that implicate your worth. It is one of the most psychologically destructive assumptions a person can carry. Pain is universal. Difficulty is universal. Loss, illness, failure, humiliation, these are not targeted. They are the fabric. They happen to everyone. The variable is not whether they happen. The variable is what you do with the meaning you assign them. The foolish man assigns the meaning of persecution. He says, I am a good person, I work hard, I try to do right. So why is this happening to me? And in that question, he reveals the hidden contract he thought he had with reality. The contract that says good behavior should exempt a person from suffering. When reality breaks that contract, he feels not just pain but betrayal. And betrayal is far heavier than pain alone. The Stoics had a concept for the alternative, amor fati, love of fate, not acceptance, love, not gritting your teeth and enduring what comes, actively embracing it, finding the function in it, treating it not as an interruption to your development, but as the mechanism of your development. Think about what actually makes a person strong, not the absence of resistance. Resistance. A wrestler who trains only against weak opponents stays weak indefinitely. It is the opponent who throws you down, who is bigger and faster and better than you, who forces your body to adapt beyond what it was. Your coach is not putting you against the champion because he hates you. Your coach is putting you against the champion because that is the only way to build a champion. Life is that coach. The difficulty you are experiencing right now is not punishment. It is curriculum. The question, why is this happening to me, rejects the curriculum. It is a child refusing to do the work because the work is hard. The question that changes everything is a different one. What is this preparing me for? What does handling this well make possible that would otherwise be impossible? What does this require of me that I did not know I had? Marcus Aurelius ruled an empire during a plague, during multiple wars, during the betrayal of people he trusted. He did not ask why. He asked, what does this demand of me? And then he met the demand. That is the whole of it. Meet the demand. Whatever comes, meet it with the full quality of your character, and trust that the meeting of it is making you into someone larger than you were before. The fire does not discriminate. It burns everything thrown into it. But to the man who is fuel, the fire does not destroy him. It refines him. 5. I already know that. 4 words. And they are a tombstone. Not a dramatic one. Not a sudden death. A slow one. The kind that happens over years. As a man's world quietly stops expanding, because he has decided, without ever formally deciding, that the map he has already drawn is complete. The foolish man uses, I already know that, as armor. It protects his ego from the discomfort of being a student. Because to be a student is to admit ignorance, and admitting ignorance feels, to the insecure mind, like losing, like weakness. So rather than experience that discomfort, he pretends the content isn't new. He dismisses the book he hasn't read. He interrupts the explanation he hasn't heard. He responds to ideas before he has finished receiving them. He is listening not to understand, but to reply. And in doing so, he guarantees that he will never be genuinely changed by anything he encounters. Epictetus, the slave philosopher, was famous for removing students from his classroom. Not the slow ones, not the confused ones, the arrogant ones, the ones who arrived full of their own theories and opinions, ready to debate rather than to receive. He said simply, "It is impossible for a man to learn what he already thinks he knows." There is a Zen story that maps perfectly onto this truth. A scholar travels to visit a master, full of knowledge, full of questions that are really statements in disguise. The master invites him to sit and begins pouring tea into his cup. The cup fills to the rim. The master keeps pouring. Tea spills across the table, soaks the scholar's robes. The scholar shouts for him to stop. The master puts down the teapot. He says, "Like this cup, you are full of your own opinions. How can I give you anything when there is no room left?" The arrogant man walks through life with a full cup. He guards his ignorance ferociously because his ego has confused familiarity with mastery. He has heard the concept before, therefore he understands it. He has read the headline, therefore he knows the story. He has thought about the question once, therefore the question is settled. The wisest men in history were consistently the ones most at ease with the vastness of what they did not know. Socrates built an entire philosophy on the single insight that his only advantage over other men was knowing that he knew nothing. That intellectual humility, that willingness to sit with open questions rather than forcing premature closure, is not weakness. It is the prerequisite for all genuine growth. Empty your cup, not permanently, not nihilistically, but before every conversation, before every book, before every idea that challenges your current model of the world, empty it just enough to let something new in. The man who can do that will grow without ceiling. The man who cannot will have finished growing before he is 40, and will spend the rest of his life defending a position rather than expanding it. 6. I don't have time. This is almost never true, and the honest version of it, stated plainly, would be, "This is not a priority to me," which is completely valid. You are allowed to have priorities, but the lie, the comfortable fiction that the problem is scarcity of hours rather than allocation of hours, is one of the most expensive habits of mind a person can maintain, because the lie has a consequence. If you believe you don't have time, you become passive about how you spend it. You are not making a choice. You are being swept along by circumstances. If you own the honest version, this is not a priority. You are forced to reckon with whether that is a priority order you actually endorse. The man who says he does not have time to read, to think, to exercise, to build his inner life, that man has 4 hours of screen time on his phone today. Not because he is weak, because he has not brought conscious intention to the question of where his hours go. Seneca wrote one of the most precise and devastating essays in Western philosophy on this exact subject. He observed that men guard their money with extraordinary vigilance. They would not let a stranger reach into their pocket and take a single coin. They lock their doors. They count their change. They invest and plan and protect. And then they hand their time to anyone who asks. Hours to arguments that will not matter next month. Days to entertainment that leaves nothing behind. Years to jobs they resent. Relationships that drain them. Obligations they accepted without thinking. They do not protect their time because time is invisible. You cannot hold it. You cannot count it. Its theft does not feel like theft. But here is the arithmetic that changes things. Every morning, 86,400 seconds are deposited into your account. No carryover, no savings mechanism. Whatever you do not invest by midnight is gone permanently. Not retrievable, not refundable. You have never once received a second back. The foolish man lets those seconds drain away in a fog of half-attention and passive consumption. The Stoic treats time as the only truly non-renewable resource. He cuts ruthlessly. He says no to the good so he can say yes to the great. He understands that every yes is a no to everything else, and he chooses accordingly. The man who says he is too busy to improve himself is too busy driving to stop for fuel. He will not run out of excuses. He will run out of road, and he will arrive at the end of his life having been, by every external measure, very busy, while having spent almost none of his hours on the things that actually mattered to him. This one I want you to be genuinely honest about in the comments, not with me, with yourself. Write down the one thing you keep saying you don't have time for, the one thing, and then honestly calculate. Is it time, or is it priority? That conversation, just that one, might be worth more than anything else in this video. 7. Living for the approval of people who are not thinking about you. This one is less a phrase than a posture, a way of moving through the world that most men never fully examine because it is so thoroughly normalized. The impulse to perform rather than be, to manage perception rather than build character, to spend enormous amounts of energy shaping what other people think of you. Marcus Aurelius noticed this and found it genuinely baffling. He wrote in his private journal, again a journal he never intended anyone to read, which makes every line of it unusually honest, that it struck him as strange. Every man claims to love himself above all others, and yet he values a stranger's opinion of him more than his own opinion of himself. Read that again. The man who says his own judgment matters most to him, that same man will lie awake rearranging a conversation from 3 days ago, rehearsing the better version of what he should have said, agonizing over whether he came across well, monitoring whether he was liked. We call this caring about what people think. But what it actually is, underneath the social language, is fear. Fear of rejection. Fear of judgment. Fear that who you actually are, unperformed, unfiltered, unedited, is not sufficient. So the foolish man becomes an actor. He changes his opinions based on who is in the room. He suppresses what he actually believes when it might cost him approval. He curates his life for an audience and then wonders why his life feels hollow, not understanding that the hollowness is the performance itself. You cannot perform and be authentic simultaneously. Every hour spent managing your image is an hour not spent building your character, and character is the only thing that actually holds. Think about the actor on a stage who spends the entire performance watching the audience, looking for nodding heads, checking for laughter in the right places, adjusting his delivery based on what seems to be landing. He will forget his lines. He will lose the scene. He will ruin the performance precisely by trying to manage it. The performance only works when he stops watching the crowd and starts inhabiting the truth of the scene. The Stoic knows, reputation is what people think you are. Character is what you actually are. Reputation is noise. Character is signal. And the only man who can build your character is you, in the private moments when no one is watching, when there is no audience to perform for and no approval on offer. Here is the thing about seeking approval. It is not just emotionally exhausting. It is structurally dangerous, because if your sense of self depends on what other people think of you, then anyone can destroy you with a single sentence, one bad review, one dismissive comment, one cold shoulder from someone whose opinion you have decided matters. That is not freedom. That is a very elaborate, socially acceptable form of slavery. The man who has stopped seeking approval is almost impossible to manipulate. You cannot reward him with praise he doesn't need or punish him with criticism he doesn't fear. He is, in the deepest sense, free. The door has always been unlocked. These 7 patterns, externalizing blame, surrendering emotional sovereignty, postponing presence, resisting difficulty, armoring against learning, misallocating time, and performing for an imaginary audience, are not character defects. They are not signs of weakness or stupidity in any permanent sense. They are habits, learned behaviors, thought patterns so deeply grooved by repetition that they feel like reality rather than choice. And the terrible irony is that they all feel in the moment like self-protection. Blame protects you from the discomfort of responsibility. Anger protects you from the vulnerability of grief. Deferred happiness protects you from the risk of wanting things now and not getting them. And the performance protects you from the terror of being seen as you actually are and found wanting. But protection and growth are not the same thing. and you cannot protect yourself into a life worth living. Stoicism, and I want to be precise about what this word actually means, because it has been distorted into a kind of emotional suppression that it was never meant to be. Stoicism is not about feeling less. It is about thinking more clearly. It is about seeing the world without the distortion of ego, fear, and self-deception, and then acting from that clearer sight with courage. Marcus Aurelius, Epictetus, Seneca. These were not cold men. They were not joyless or detached. They loved deeply, thought deeply, suffered deeply. What they had cultivated was a relationship with their own minds that allowed them to move through difficulty without being destroyed by it, to experience loss without being consumed by it, to want things without being enslaved by the wanting. That is available to you, not as a personality transplant, not as a sudden transformation, as a daily practice of catching yourself, noticing when one of these sentences rises in your throat, pausing before it comes out, and choosing deliberately. That pause, the space between impulse and response, is where your character actually lives. In that pause, you are not reacting. You are choosing. And choosing, done consistently over time, is how a man becomes someone he actually respects. There is one last thing I want to ask of you before you close this tab and return to your life. Drop a comment below. Tell me which one of these 7 landed hardest for you. Not the one you recognize in other people, the one you recognize in yourself. That level of honesty is rare. It is also the beginning of everything. Share this with someone who needs it, not to be right, not to make a point. Because real growth is contagious, and the people around you deserve the same opportunity to see these patterns clearly. If this is the kind of thinking you want more of, the kind that asks hard questions and does not let you off the hook, subscribe. That is what this channel is for. Not comfort, not applause. Truth, delivered as directly as I know how. The door to the prison you have built in your own mind has never been locked. It has always opened from the inside. The only question is whether you are ready to push.